testing it out at my house, trying to make sure that I know what I'm doing with it. But the guy who really knows what to do with it is our next presenter, and that is going to be James Vance. He is Remote Falcon, so he's joining us via Zoom. Again, let's give him a round of applause. Thank you for being here today. Appreciate it. And you are in control.
All right. Well, thank you for having me here today. Yeah, so like you mentioned, my name is James Vance, and so I'm the primary person who works on Remote Falcon. And if you haven't used it or don't know anything about it, it did start in early 2021. And if any of you were some of the first ones to see it, then you'll know it's kind of come a long way since then. And so kind of the plan that I had for today was to go through Remote Falcon, show you some of the features in it, and you will actually be the first ones to see the new Remote Falcon as well. And so I kind of saved that as a surprise, specifically for this Light Up Ohio meeting. And then at the end of it, I will save time for anybody who has questions about it. So to get to Remote Falcon, it's pretty easy. So remotefalcon.com will take you to the website. And when you first get there, this is the screen that you'll see. If you do have an account already, then you sign in as normal. If not, then you would want to sign up here. And for sign up, the only things that are asked for right now is your show name, email, and password, and to verify that you are indeed a person. The show name, it has to be unique. So if you try to sign up with the show name that somebody else already has, and it won't let you do that. But if you sign up with the show name, you can always change it later, so you're not necessarily stuck with it. Sign up and sign in is pretty straightforward. And so we're just going to dive right in. And I'll actually pull up my own account here. And the very first thing you see when you log in is this dashboard page. And so you have your different links along the top that we'll get to, the ability to change between this awful light mode and dark, and then signing out. And you'll notice that whatever light show name that you put in during sign up, you'll see at the top here with this link. So when you sign up for Remote Falcon, it generates a URL that's just for you. And so this show URL is what your users will go to in order to interact with your show, which we'll also get into some more. And so whenever so this is my live show page. But when you sign up, you'll have a different default page that you'll be able to customize. But on the dashboard, now I gotta go back a ways to when I actually have some data. So you're able to see how many people visit your page, which is the page that they go to request sequences. And it's by how many unique visitors you get, how many total visitors. And it also shows jukebox and voting, which we'll also get into, how many total requests you get by date, and it breaks it down by the individual sequences. And then you can also see how many requests you get for specific sequences, so that pretty helpful for finding out which ones are the most popular for yours. And for me, I didn't have voting set up on mine, and so I don't have any data for that. So we're actually going to get into the viewer settings now. And the viewer settings is where you can essentially configure how your viewers will interact with your page. So right now, if you look at mine, you can see that there's this message displayed here that shows what time the show runs, and noting that any requests that are there at 10 p.m. will be cleared out, because that's when my show ends. And the reason you see that is because I currently have viewer control turned off. But if I turn on viewer control and click save at the bottom, now on our page you can see I have a list of sequences that the viewers can choose from. And it will show what's currently playing, what's coming up next, and everything that's currently been requested. So for me, I use jukebox mode. So there's currently 2 viewer control modes that can be used. One is jukebox and the other is voting. And a jukebox is exactly how it sounds. So a viewer will come to your page, request a sequence, and if there's no sequences in the queue, then that particular sequence will be played next. And then if somebody else comes in and requests a sequence, then it'll just continue to add it to the queue, and they'll play in the order in which they were requested. So exactly how a jukebox would work. And then for voting mode, you can see it changes the way the list looks. So for this viewer control mode, it's probably more suited for shows that might get a lot of traffic. That would result in a lot of requests. And so this allows multiple viewers to actually vote on what sequence they want to see. And so if a viewer places a vote for Twinkly Lights, then it shows there's 1 vote there. And then just a setting that just only allows viewers to vote once per round, which we will get to in just a moment. So there are some jukebox specific settings. One of them being the max queue depth. And so this value determines how many songs can be put into the queue at any given time. So if we set this to 3, then what that means is as soon as there are 3 songs in the queue, then no other songs can be requested. And so that prevents your jukebox queue from just getting out of control with a whole lot of requests. And the jukebox sequence request limit. So this one's always been difficult for me to explain, but I do have a YouTube channel for Remote Falcon as well. And let's see. It is not there. Look. I need to go to and there's actually a video that does a deep dive on this specific feature. But essentially what it does is it ensures that that requested sequences don't get requested back to back. And it's a good way to prevent somebody from just requesting the same sequence multiple times. And so if this is set to 1, then it will, since this release is the next one up, and I'll need to change that. If I try to request that sequence again, then it'll tell me that the song's already in the queue. But if I try to select twinkly lights, it'll let me, because there is one sequence that comes after this one. And so that's this one in here. So it makes sure that there's at least one sequence after the request is being made. So if I change this to 2, then it won't let me request twinkly lights or burns, but it will let me select swing line because it's farther than 2 sequences apart. Like I said, it's really confusing to explain. And so this is just one of those that you watch the video and mess with the setting and see how it works for you. And then, excuse me, the voting specific settings are preventing multiple votes, which we have currently turned on. So if I already voted, it won't let me vote again. If I turn that off, then it'll allow me to place a vote as many times as I want. And then reset votes after round. So after a sequence is pulled in based on the highest number of votes, then you can choose to reset all of the votes back to 0. Or if you keep this off, then it'll keep the votes through to the next round. So if there are votes on other sequences and twinkly lights wins, then the votes on all the other sequences will still be there when twinkly lights gets pulled in. And then there's some settings that are not specific to jukebox or voting. And one of those is the ability to play a PSA sequence. So if you have a sequence or media that plays during your show that reminds your viewers to not block driveways, turn off headlights, just be considerate in general, then you can turn that on and you can select which one of the sequences that you have is going to be the one that you play for your PSA. So you can have one or multiple PSA sequences. So I only had one of them last year. And then you can decide how often that sequence will play. So if you have it set to 3, then that means that the PSA will play after 3 requests, after each 3 requests or 3 voting rounds. And so it ensures that if viewers are constantly requesting or voting, that your PSA has a chance to play. And then another important one is this check viewer present option. So what this does is it ensures that the person or the viewer requesting sequences or voting on sequences is actually at your show location. And there's a couple different options that you can do. So you can do GPS location. And I just gave away my location, but that's all right. And so if you have GPS set up, then it will detect your location, or you could put in a custom latitude, longitude, based on where your show is. And then how many miles they have to be within that radius in order to request a song. So if the viewer rolls up and they're actually in front of your show, then they'll be able to request or vote on a sequence. If your show is, for example, in Ohio, and there is somebody on your show page in California, then it will not let them request or vote on a sequence because they are outside of that detected location. Now, if you don't want to use location, you can also choose to use a code. And so if you choose the code, then you can enter in whatever code you want. And I don't think I had this set up on. Anyway, just 1 second, and let me actually. There we go. So this is the default viewer page that you would get when you first sign up. But if you enable location code, then it adds this text box down here. So if I put in some random code and I try to place a request, it tells me it's not right. So I have to put in the actual code and pick something else. And it'll let me make a request on the page. And then finally we have this hide sequence after play. So this is another way to ensure that, not that the sequence doesn't get requested multiple times, but that other sequences kind of get their turn, so their share at being requested or voted on, just to kind of make sure you get a good rotation of sequences and it's not the same ones being played all the time. So after a sequence has been played, then you can choose to hide it for any number of requests or rounds. And then after that many sequences is played, then it'll be reintroduced back into the list. And then at the bottom here, we have this option to view our current queue. And you can see these are the sequences that were requested during testing. You can delete any one of the sequences, or you can delete all of them. And that actually clears out the current queue. So those are the settings that you can adjust that allow your viewer to interact with your show in different ways. And so we're going to head back over to the actual page itself. So when you sign up, you'll be given this default viewer page here. And so you have the preview on the side, and then a lot of stuff on the left-hand side over here. If you're not familiar with things like HTML or CSS, then this can possibly be overwhelming. But this is how you can really customize and make that viewer page your own. And so you can see on the basic starting template, like there's nothing filled in. It says enter your show title and 2020, which needs to be newer. But as you make changes, typos and everything, then the preview updates. So you can get an idea of what your page is going to look like as you're making changes to it. And then when you're done making changes, then you can save them, and they will be updated on your viewer page. You can also, if you make a bunch of changes to it and something gets messed up in the preview, then you can reset any change that you made, or you can revert your page back to the default, which that is actually what I did a few minutes ago. So I had my custom page set, and I wanted to show what the default one looked like, so I reverted back to the default page and then saved it. And then also on this settings page are a couple of other things. So you have the option to show your page on the gallery. And I will show that to you in just a moment. If you have a super cool page, then this is just your way of being able to share it with others. And then you can also set the title and the icon that show up in the tab at the top. And so it's just a nicer way of being able to customize your page so that it has information that's more pertinent to your lecture instead of default stuff. All right, so if you get here and you have no idea how you want to format or do your page, then this viewer page gallery is a good place to go to for inspiration and to steal other people's artwork. But they put it on here, so it's okay with them if you take it. So you can also, put a heart on specific pages if you like it, and so it orders them by kind of the most popular pages. If you want to see what their page looks like, then you can actually open their viewer page and look through it and see how it looks. And if you like somebody's page and you actually want to use it for your own, then you can actually copy this HTML and then go back to your custom page. Get rid of everything in here and then paste it. And so this is all the HTML that makes this page. And so if you save the changes and then refresh yours, then you can see it updates your viewer page to the one that you selected. And all your sequences and stuff right there. The only thing you have to change is obviously things like address and logos and stuff like that. All right, and then last thing we'll look at in the actual web application here is the sequences page. So these are all the sequences that I currently have synced with Remote Falcon. So when I say sync, I'll get into the actual process of setting up the Falcon Player and Schedule plugins to get sequences into Remote Falcon for your viewers to select. But on the sequences page, there's an inactive sequences. So if you update the sequences you have synced with Remote Falcon, then the ones that you're no longer using can show up under inactive. But for the most part, you'll probably just have active sequences that you've selected for your viewers to choose from. A couple things that you can change here is you can change how the sequence actually displays on your viewer page. And actually, I'm going to go back just real quick. I'm going to go back to default. A little bit easier to read. So if the sequence, this is going to be the sequence name as it is in Falcon Player or Xschedule. And so sometimes your sequences may be titled differently or not the way you want it to appear to your viewer. So if I decided I don't want, the name of the artist to show, then I can remove that, save the sequence names, and then it'll update and just show whatever it is you want them to be able to see. And then you also do have the ability to sort by dragging and dropping currently. And so If I decide I want this one to appear at a different spot in the list, then it'll update it there. And you can also sort alphabetically. These actions on the side determine if the sequence is, this first one determines if the sequence is visible. So, as you saw earlier, I have a PSA that plays every three sequences, and I had that hidden. But I don't actually want my viewers to be able to select the PSA, but if I make it visible, then it would show in the list. And so this just allows you to hide things that you don't necessarily want your viewers to interact with, but you still need it as part of remote Falcon. You can also delete, you can delete the sequence and you can play it. So what happens is, since obviously the show owner is the only one that can get to this page, if I have multiple requests in here, so you can see right now Christmas Storm is playing next. But if I come in and I decide I want Light of Christmas to play next, then I can hit the play button, and that will override all the other requests. So it'll take precedence over everything else. If you're in voting mode, then it will just slap, I think, over 1,000 votes on it just to ensure that that sequence gets played next. So it's kind of your way of saying, you know, maybe someone's standing outside and watching your show and they're not interacting with the app, but they send you a text or they, you know, tell you in person, hey, I want to see this sequence. Then you can open up your control panel and select it for them to play next. Sequence groups. So this is actually something new that was introduced last year. And what it allows you to do is you can create a group that groups 2 or more sequences together and plays them back to back. So, for example, let's say PSA and Harry Potter. So I created this group name called PSA and Harry Potter. And what I can do is I can add the PSA and I can add the Harry Potter sequence to that group. And then on our page, when it updates, you can see Harry Potter went away and was replaced with the actual group name. So whatever name you give the group is what shows up. Now, when I'm gonna clear my queue out here. Delete. Here. When I select this, notice it added both items to the queue. So if you have a song intro, or if you have 2 sequences that play together, so maybe it's an intro for a song, or even a command that has to run before a song is played, then you can group those things together to ensure that it always plays one before the other, or multiple, however you need to group them together. And it will do it in order of the list that you have. So you noticed it put Harry Potter first and then PSA. But if I move this, it has to put this above Harry Potter. clear my queue again. It didn't update. Oh. So it might need to be created again. No, looks like I'm gonna have to fix that. So I had it assigned to the group and then reordered it. Looks like it didn't like that. But it will, so whatever order you have in this list is the order that it will put it into the request, into the queue or for voting. And so it's important if you have an intro, make sure that intro appears before whatever sequence you have. And then finally on this page we have the image URL. So if you want to display an image next to your sequence name, then you could put in a link here. I think the old link. I'll use this as an example. And so it'll put an image next to the sequence name. So if you want to have like the album cover or some sort of picture next to it, then you can choose to do that as well. And then really the only things left on here is you can change your show name, change your password, requesting API access. So you are able to add, if you don't want like LUO/slideshow.remoteFalcon.com, if you want to put this on your own website, then you actually can get access to the API to set that up. And you'll get the email if you request access with all the details and information on how to do that. And delete the account if you want to do that. All right, so I've used up a lot of time, so I do want to touch real quick on actually setting up the plugin for Falcon Player. So there's this link here that says, click here for your remote token and steps for setting up Falcon Player. I'm not going to click this because this actually has my remote token in it. And actually, you know what, I won't. It's all good. I can actually go change it. So what you'll get when you sign up is this special token here that says don't share with anybody. And this is what you will use in Falcon Player or Xschedule to tell the plugin which show it needs to interact with. So it's the plugin's way of saying, like, this token belongs to LUO Slideshow. And so I'm going to open up my test Falcon Player here. And uninstall. To install the Remote Falcon plugin, if you go to the plugin manager at FPP, and scroll down because they're in alphabetical order, then you'll see the Remote Falcon plugin, and then you just click install. Now, when you install it, you do have to reboot. I'm not going to do that just yet, because I just want to go through the setup for it. And so here's a few things in the plugin. The important one being this remote token. So the remote token is where you would copy this and then put it in here and then update it and save that. So the remote playlist is what you'll use to actually tell the plugin which sequences you want to put into Remote Falcon. So For me, I actually have a playlist set up called RF. So this playlist needs to only be used for getting sequences or commands into remote Falcon. It should not be part of any schedules or anything like that, because it can cause issues if it's part of a schedule. So on my test one, you can see I have just these random sequences set up. And so in the change up, I don't want it to actually update. If I select that, then I can click update and it'll put all the sequences into remote Falcon. If you have commands, it'll give you this little heads up, because commands can be kind of, since you can make a command do anything, then you just have to be aware of what the command's doing. Interrupt schedule. If this is turned on, then if somebody places a request while your schedule is running, or somebody does a vote on a sequence while your schedule is running, then it will interrupt it immediately. So even if it's in the middle of the sequence, it'll stop it and it'll start playing the request. So that can be pretty jarring for somebody. And so what this is helpful for is if you have some sort of static effect that runs and you only want to show sequences that are being requested and voted on, then you can choose to interrupt that static effect. And then when the sequence is done, when the request is done, then it will pick back up right where it left off in the schedule. So if it stopped at minute 1 of a sequence, then it'll pick up at minute 1 of that sequence. Check plugin, it just runs a check to see if there's any issues with it. So it checks for things like special characters, or if the remote playlist is part of any schedules or anything like that. These advanced settings, you shouldn't have to change any of these, but if something is going on weird with the plugin, then you can adjust these settings. And so you have how far in advance before the end of the sequence does it fetch the next one. Adding extra wait time after it requests the song. The reason these settings exist is because everybody's Pi or Beagle is set up different, and it's going to have different memory, different CPU. And so if you have issues with FPP freezing because it might be checking for the status too often, then you can adjust these settings as needed to ensure that your FPP is running as it should. But hopefully you don't have to change any of these things. And then you have the ability to stop and restart the plugin. So if you change any of these settings, like interrupt schedule, the playlist, the token, then it will restart the plugin for you. There's no need to do it manually. But if something's not working, you can always try to restart it. And so this is it for the actual FPP plugin. And I used up a whole lot more time than I thought I would. So I'm probably going to take another 7 minutes. I'll leave 10 minutes for questions, so that, as promised, I can show this. So this is actually going to be the new landing page for Remote Falcon. So it's nicer, it has a little more info on it. And then literally everything is different. So there's a lot of stuff that was added added on in this a lot of like custom, styling and stuff like that. And I wanted to make it more, I guess, professional looking. I don't know if that's the right word. But this is, so I'm not going to go into detail on all the pages because we just did. But this here would be the new dashboard page that you would land on. So it still has all the same charts, and it just look a little better. And the ability to change your date range. But then also at the top, we have a kind of overview of the day. So how many active viewers are on your page, how many you've had total requests that are currently active, and how many you've had for today. And then the ability to view your requests just like before. The settings page is laid out a lot nicer, so they're actually grouped by their individual sections. And then the nice new thing that I decided to add is you actually have the ability to have more than one viewer page. So you can see here I have one for Christmas, one for Halloween, I have my default one, or my actual Christmas one, and then the original one. And so if I wanted to create a new page, then I could give it a name, select my starting template, which you can actually select from different templates now, and it'll create the page for you. You can do the toggle on the preview on the side. If I wanted to edit the Christmas page, I could do that. I could go into a full screen preview for it. And then also something that's very helpful. So a lot of, in the past, a lot of people have had issues with their page not working. And typically it had something to do with, a div not being closed properly or some sort of problem on the page. So there's now this validator that goes through your entire page and it looks for problems. Some of them can be ignored, but some of them are pretty important. So you can see I removed that div and it said, hey, there's an unclosed div. And it tells me which line it's unclosed on. And so I can go back in and I can add it, and then validation passes. And then I can save the page. Another nice thing about the settings, you notice there's no save button. So it actually saves automatically as you make changes. And so you can see here's the Christmas one. I can come back and I can say I actually want it to be Halloween. And so it updates to a Halloween theme. This is also new, it's kind of experimental. Make it snow. So one of the popular effects is like adding snowfall stuff to the page. People really seem to like it, but always had questions on how to add it. So you turn that on, and it just adds a snow effect for you. So, not important at all, but it's fun. And then sequences page got a big overhaul here. So it shows if it's active, inactive, if it's a command, if it's just a media or a sequence. It's still the same thing, so ability to update the name, URL, managing your sequence groups, and then, same actions here. So the biggest difference is going to be that viewer page gallery is going to go away. There are many pages of stuff and a lot of them are just the same. And so instead, I'm going to have started templates. And if somebody wants their page to be part of the template thing, then I'll add it to that. But I just kind of wanted to get more of a handle on which pages you can choose from. And then, yeah, that's the new UI. You can also change the theme to whatever you want here. You can have different colors. You can change it to light pink. That's too much for me. And so just the ability to customize it a lot more. And this, I'm hoping to have this released sometime this week. And so that'll give people a chance to go in and check it out. Look for the Easter egg that I guarantee nobody's going to find this time around. No. All right.
Well, at least we know.
Well, that's all I have. I'm going to open it up for questions because I talked a lot. So.
All right. Well, first off, James, thank you, because this is obviously a lot of work that you put into this, and it makes it a lot easier for us to do what we need to do. So thank you for that. Really looking forward to seeing the new version out there. Now I know that I have to go hunt for an Easter egg, so now I have a goal all summer. Got it? All right, so yeah, let's go ahead and open up the questions. Who's got a question? And I'll probably repeat it for you so that way you can hear it.
Sure.
Any questions for James at this point? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I got some beginner questions. I'm not using this before. Number one, do you have to have a Falcon controller?
Do you have to have a Falcon controller for this to work?
You do not. So I use, all my controllers are Colt, but they all still run Falcon Player. So Falcon Player will work on Colt Falcon devices, all those other, types of vendor devices out there. And then if you don't, I didn't show it because I don't have it set up online, but if you use Xschedule, there's also a remote Falcon plugin for that. But the controller doesn't matter. It's just if you're running Falcon Player, then you can install this plugin.
All right, great question.
Kind of a follow-up to that.
Yeah.
You just mentioned it. So typically I use Xschedule to play my show. Do I use Xschedule or do I use a remote Falcon Player as
You
my
use
schedule?
Xschedule. I actually do this because I use Xschedule with this, and I can actually help you with that and kind of show you what to do and how to set it up.
Okay.
It's not hard to set it up with Xschedule at all. Once you get it all loaded, there's a little bit where you kind of have to finesse, and James, correct me if I'm wrong on this, you have to finesse it a little bit just to get your sequences in a group to make sure that that's what the remote Falcon is looking at. But once you get that set up, the rest of it, you're off to the races at that point. So it's actually very simple overall. At least I think so, but that's just me. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Yeah, just based on our previous part of the conference, your master needs to have internet access in order for this to work. They need to communicate with the remote Falcon website. Right?
So the master FPP,
Yes.
if you're running it that way, if you're using FPP to play your show, you do have to have internet access on the master to be able to get to the remote Falcon.
Correct. Yeah.
Is this going to work on all platforms?
Does this work on all platforms?
All platforms.
Windows.
PC, Linux, mobile,
Can you clarify?
RAS?
I'm sorry, you said Linux and
PC.
Mac, PC. I know it works on PC because I use it.
Oh, yeah, it'll work on Mac, PC, Linux, whatever your flavor is. So everything is it's a web app, right? There's nothing to download except on FPP where you install the plugin. So it'll work on anything. Chrome, Firefox, Safari, Edge, if you use that. Well, but yeah, it'll work everywhere.
Yes, sir.
So when it's in jukebox mode and it'll interrupt the song, let's say at 1 minute mark, is it possible once the song is done in jukebox to go back and like restart that song, or is it always going to return back to that 1 minute mark? Because sometimes it'll cut out the song and it's like really loud and it's annoying, and then they'll play the song, which is great, but then it goes back to super loud and annoying part. Like, I was curious if it would be possible to restart that song or skip it and go to the next one. So
Okay, so in jukebox mode, one more time for me?
yeah, in jukebox mode, once it interrupts the song, that
Once it interrupts the
playing,
song,
Or voting.
or
Yeah.
voting.
Either.
yeah, and then when it's over, is it possible to just restart the song that it was on previously?
Okay, so when it interrupts a song, is it possible to have the song that it interrupted restarted, or just go to the next song?
Correct.
Plus.
No, and that is because, so the plugin uses the FPP API that was worked on by Dan Colt, Rick Harris, Scott, a bunch of other FPP developers. And so things like the interrupt playlist, the way it inserts the sequences, that's kind of at the mercy of how Falcon Player works. And the way that interrupt, so it's called insert playlist immediately. And the way that works is it inserts immediately and then picks up where it left off. I believe I've talked to Dan about it before, about seeing if there's a way to have it so that if the sequence is interrupted, it can start from the beginning, but there's nothing that exists for that right now.
That answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is more of a comment than a question. What I do with my remote setup is I have a streaming camera. So what I did is I got an IP camera, right? And I take that, the video feed, you can view the video feed in like a web browser, like some IP cameras, you just go to a web page and you can see your video feed. On a computer, I load OBS, right, OBS Studio. I send the video feed into OBS. I take the Falcon Player's audio output, or if you're running Xschedule, it could be your sound card output. I feed that into OBS, and then I take that and I can overlay stuff like graphics, send it off to Twitch, and you can get a free account on Twitch. Twitch will give you a piece of HTML code that you can put right in this, and that way people can, from remote, can watch and hear and control your show, and it's dirt simple.
Oh,
And
I
it
see
works.
what you're saying,
So you
yeah.
can just put that right in that HTML code, and so now you have people driving to your, on a car seeing your stuff, and then you have people all over the world looking at your stuff and hearing it, and it's all synced, pretty well. I think there's like a 10-second delay of what they see over to what your show already did, but
Right.
the sound and the video is perfectly synced. Yeah, it's super easy and it's super reliable.
He's
So
using an IP camera to feed into, you said the OBS,
into Twitch.
into Twitch, and then he's taking the embedded from Twitch and putting that into the show page.
And the beauty of that is Twitch is hosting your video feed. You only need one upload to Twitch of your video feed. Then infinite people viewing Twitch is not affecting your bandwidth at all.
So they can actually see it from the remote
Yeah,
Falcon
so-
page. They can see the
Right.
view of your show, and they can control. Yeah, got it. That's actually really
It works
cool.
well, yeah.
That's really cool. Somebody, yeah.
I was just going to ask for a suggestion. How do people find your page? What do you do to?
How do people find your page? Well, that's that's a whole other thing right there.
Oh,
I put it
yeah.
on my,
Yeah.
I put it on my matrix, and I put it on my P10, and then I also.
Right,
put
yeah,
it on
you can put it up within your sequence, like a PSA within your sequencing, put it up that way, or a lot of people have signs made that they put in the front yard, or they'll take a separate, like a P10 panel, and they'll put that in the front yard, like Rick hangs it from like the rafter in the house, the porch. Yeah. Any other questions on remote Falcon?
It's all just donation based?
Yeah, James, how do you make a living at this? Is it all donation based?
Well, I don't. So, like everybody here, holiday lighting is a hobby of mine. And when I came up with the idea, I implemented it for myself. And so for 2 years, I had viewers controlling my own show in a very basic way. And I was like, how can I let other people use this? And so that's when I started trying to make it so that other people could customize and install it. And it's just something I enjoy. So I'm a senior software engineer during the day for my normal day job. And I've been doing that for about 12 years now. And so it's just something I enjoy. There's a lot of people in the lighting community that are, they offer stuff for free or, hardly no charge. And so it's a very giving and supportive community. And this is just my way of, being able to support and give something neat to the community. And so I don't charge for it at all. You can donate if you want to support Remote Falcon. So there's buttons on the web page. This one's at the bottom, and then also in the plugin. And it's never expected or required. It'll always be free. And so any donation is just to help me offset the cost, because I run all this on, in technical jargon, I run everything on Kubernetes clusters. So that way during the busy season, I can scale everything up to make sure it allows for all the viewers and traffic. And so, donations just going to help offset that cost. But yeah, I do it because I enjoy it, and it's, other people enjoy using it, and so that makes me happy.
I know that I, for one, appreciate it. I'm sure I speak for a lot of you that appreciate it too. One last question.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say thanks. I've used it for, I don't know, a few years or whatever, probably that it's been out. And it's one of the best parts of my show. And we have some of the same kids in the neighborhood that come by, I think every night. I can just tell by the songs that are played. I'm like, oh, I know the neighbors down the street or whatever. So, yeah, thanks. One request maybe for the future, in addition to just being able to pick songs, it would be really cool if there was a way to have some other links on your page that would be a real-time FPP command or something. You could send something that would do something during a song. You could, somebody could say, hey, play whatever, make it snow or something or whatever, and you get a prompts or things that might turn on and off or whatever, real time through Falcon Player.
James, did you catch
That
that?
would be super cool.
Yeah, I think I caught most of it. I think the gist of it was real-time commands,
Yes.
right? So even while sequences are playing, rather than it being a request within a queue or a vote, then you could just say, hey, do this.
Correct.
And it'll send that command to Remote Falcon. Yeah, so that's actually in the works, and the start of that was the ability to actually sync commands with Remote Falcon. And the initial idea was, hey, I want a sequence or an option in my list that when the viewer selects it, it's just something random. And so you can see I have a command here that just says insert a random item from a playlist, and it's a command called surprise me. And so somebody would tap it, and it could be anything, right? And so commands already work in Remote Falcon. And so it would just be a matter of saying, hey, treat this command as a, do this immediately thing, and then figuring out how to get Falcon Player to actually get that command, because the plugin does a lot of listening for requests, and it's very, at the end of this sequence, go out and find what the highest voted one is, and so it required a little more work to have something that's do this immediately. So, but yeah, it's a great idea.
All right, well, guys, let's give James a round of applause. Thank you for lots of great information. Cannot wait to see the new version of Remote Falcon when it gets launched. So thank you.
All right.
Thank you again
Yep.
for the time. Lots of great information.